Now, if we pick the winners.
All right, welcome to a bonus episode of Cinemaholics. If we pick the winners, we do this every year for the Oscars. The Oscars are about to happen usually, and we go through the nominations and pick what we would pick, right? Now, we usually do this before the Oscars come out, but we didn't this time. Will Ashton, and I'm John Negroni. Will Ashton, why did we not do it this time? What happened?
Well, it wasn't my fault.
It wasn't?
No.
What happened? I'm lost.
There's a guy on this podcast named John Negroni, and
Wait, John
John Negroni.
That's familiar.
From the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
And he was like, "Hey, guess what? I'm going across the globe on a nice vacation for several weeks."
That's right.
And
I was in Australia, Japan, and Korea, and then I came back, and then we still had time to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought. And then I caught up on all the movies. I saw all the nominated films, including the shorts. And then
you did your homework. And then the kid who slacks off in class showed up and didn't do his part for the group project.
And then John got bird flu or something?
Not the bird flu. I had a stomach flu.
You got stomach flu?
I had to rest. I wasn't on my phone or computer or anything for a while. I was pretty sick, yeah. I just started feeling better yesterday.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Zach Braff healed you.
Kind of did. I mean, yeah, we were talking about it when we were talking about Scream 6, which might come out after this does. But yeah, I got to meet Zach Braff earlier today. It was really nice. He's really chill.
Seems like it.
I wasn't sure what he would be like in person. I was kind of like, is he kind of the guy that you get from because I listened to the Scrubs podcast, like Fake Doctors, Real Friends, and you get the sense that he's a pretty chill guy, but you don't really know that until you're in a room with somebody. But he is in interview mode. One of the things I asked him too, I was just like, man, do you just get sick of doing interviews like this? And he's like, yeah, for some things, but not for a movie that feels like my baby. And I was like, oh, that's kind of sweet. You would have liked him, Will.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You're invited next time. Come on over. Yeah,
that's nice. Anyway, we want to talk about these Oscars.
If we have to, so the Oscars have already happened. So we are doing this late, and we already know who the winners are.
That's true.
Well, those winners, but we don't know who the Cinemaholics winners are, and that's what the listeners really want to know, right?
I guess so. I mean, I'm sure to listeners this is less enticing, but to me, it's more fun because, it doesn't date the episode for us to be like, well, I'm sure blank's going to win. And then it's somebody else.
Sure.
And then we look like a bunch of dang fools for, believing the publications and their false reporting or whatever.
Sure.
We know the winners. We know who the Academy...
But I didn't watch the Oscars. Again, I was sick. So I did not watch it. I got the news alerts. But you saw the ceremony, so you can speak a little bit more to what happened. How was Jimmy Kimmel as host? Did he do okay?
He was fine. I think this whole ceremony was better than last year, mainly because last year there was this weird sort of antagonistic feel to both film in general and the films nominated. It just had this weird sense that the producers wanted to make a show that was a little bit jazzier, hipper, trying to appeal to a crowd that probably had no interest in watching the Oscars to begin with. And they just made a lot of baffling and fairly offensive decisions, including putting a lot of the nominees, mainly the short films and some of the technical awards, to the beginning of the show, pre-taping, and then including those clips during the show in truncated form, and then having things like the audience score, which was a Twitter poll, which obviously got, corrupted by people, misusing it for their various fan bases or memes, or for their hyperfixation on the DCEU. And so it was a very naked attempt to try to get a clapping moment, I guess, for Spider-Man No Way Home, and that didn't happen. So it ended up being kind of funny in that respect. But yeah, the hosts didn't have chemistry last year, and then they were trying to create all these viral moments, and the one thing that did actually go viral wasn't planned at all, which is obviously the slap.
There was a controversy that really overshadowed everything. Yes. But it did. I mean, I think the result is that this year the viewership was slightly higher.
Yeah,
People were
I
like,
think,
well, who's going to get slapped this time?
I think there was, I don't know if anyone was expecting another slap. Like, I think that would have just been like
I
kind
think
of
the
absurd.
general public was. Or like people who tuned in
were-
who probably didn't before knew what happened and were kind of like, well, what if it happened again? I want to see.
I think they were expecting Jimmy Kimmel to comment on it, which he did. I think that was kind of more what people were expecting than like another incident of someone getting assaulted on
Sure.
stage.
You know what my mini rant is about this though, because you brought up how like the Oscars don't really appeal to like people anymore, and I think part of the reason is because people don't really watch a lot of these movies. They don't really care. But here's my thing about this. Here, you know what they could do, and like not everybody would like this. I could get stoned in public for this, but look, you just really lean into the idea of the Oscars being a sporting event. Because like there's already a whole cottage industry around like awards prognostication, but if the actual people who do all of this stuff, the structure stuff, really treated it like a live event akin to like a sports competition and really had fun with that and made it seem fun to people who normally wouldn't care, but get them to bet on it, money is a whole other thing. The idea of like people do like fantasy leagues and stuff like that. People like sports. Right. And the overlap between the people who love sports and live events and the people who like movies is not that thin. There are people who would watch some of this stuff to get behind a team. You know what I mean? But the Academy doesn't really lean into any of that as far as I can tell. They kind of rely on all the like awards people to do that, who do this kind of like as their whole job. And say what you will about that. I personally find it kind of annoying. Like people I like a lot do that kind of thing, and I find it annoying when they do that kind of thing, but I love them anyway. But I do think it's effective. I think there are a lot of people who get into it and get nerdy about it because people get nerdy about sports. Is this making any sense? Am I ridiculous?
I think what you're looking for is already on film Twitter, John.
But that's the thing. Film Twitter is so small.
Right.
It's not something we see anywhere else as much. Like we don't like if they had something, they leaned into this more on like other social media channels, man. Oscars could be a much bigger event. I'm not saying it would be huge, but like if they treated it more like a Super Bowl, that's how this sort of thing feeds on itself. Like think about all the people who watch the Super Bowl who don't care about football, right?
Sure.
They don't care. They're watching it for the commercials. They're watching it because their friends are watching. And you get to the place where that happens when you build the drama around the two teams against each other. And the Academy doesn't, facilitate that as much. And I think they probably should if they want this to exist further down the line.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer is here per se, but I mean, I will
just
say,
said
you talk about the relevance of the Oscars being somewhat related to people not seeing the films, but a lot of people did see at least 3 of the films nominated for Best Picture this year. They saw
That's true.
everything, everywhere, all at once. They saw
That could
Top
speak
Gun.
to why the viewership was up, actually. Maybe it's not just the slap. Maybe it's also the fact that
Right.
people actually watched Elvis.
Yes, and Avatar as well. So
Avatar.
4 movies, you could say.
Black
Yeah,
Panther, Wakanda Forever.
was nominated for Best Picture, but I like your.
Well, I'm just talking
your
about
spirit.
like general nominated, things like Angela Bassett. Like there's a big,
Yeah. I am wondering, because I feel like this idea has been floated around, if ABC, I think they hold the syndication rights for like another 5 or so years for the Oscars. And then I don't know if they're going to renew it, but I have a feeling because the Netflix is already kind of doing this already with the Screen Actor Guilds Awards. Like, I'm wondering if they're just going to like get the rights to it and stream it live on Netflix. And if that's going to give it maybe a bit of a boost because a lot of people just don't have cable. And that's like,
that's
like,
true.
I don't know. I mean, I'm wondering if that's something that could maybe elevate in the future. And that's kind of just where things are going to go for award shows in general, maybe live television in general at some point, depending on where the future of streaming is, the conversation.
Yeah, Netflix had
want
that
to
whole
have.
live Chris Rock special,
Yes.
and that was apparently pretty successful for them.
Yeah. So I feel like that's something that's very likely to happen maybe like 5 to 7 years down the road if the Oscars are still a thing by that point, which I imagine they probably will be, but who knows? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I recognize that the Oscars are a little bit more niche now than they were before and maybe have ever been. And that's fine. I don't need it to be something that is a huge deal for everybody. It never really was.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be. I like it. I like
Agreed.
celebrating movies. That's the main thing that the Oscars are meant to do. And that's the one thing they didn't do last year was celebrate movies, which is a huge reason why that show was a disaster.
All right. Before we get into
other
if we
things.
pick the winners.
Yes.
Oh, no, you had one more thing?
No, I just said among other things. Not that I was saying like that's why that show is a disaster, as if the slap wasn't the thing that was disastrous about that show.
I was just going to say, before we get into our picks for the winners, I just want to say at the outset, if you're curious about what we think about some of these movies in more detail, because there are some of these movies that were among our favorites of the year, we do have a top 10 movies of 2022 episode of the show that we put out in January. So just check the archive for that. And if you want to know more about what we think, for example, like After Sun, Everything Everywhere, all those movies, we get into more detail. Here we will not get into a ton of detail because we're just talking about the winners and we're just commenting lightly.
Yeah.
Sound good?
I think we did reviews for most of the Best Picture winners, right?
I'll have to look at it again. But at least half, maybe more.
I think the only one we didn't do was Triangle of Sadness, which I don't even know if you ever got around to seeing.
I didn't. It's the only Best Picture nom I didn't see. So I saw part of it on an airplane on my way to Australia. So let's start off here. We picked the winners with actor in a leading role. We're starting with that.
Okay.
Big one. Now,
Yeah,
I want to start with this one because this award has been cursed the last couple of years.
Okay.
Right? Because we have, Will Smith last year doing his speech after, there was the whole thing with him and, I don't know if you remember, he slapped Chris Rock at one point and then.
Oh yeah, I think I vaguely remember something about that.
Yeah. And then the year before that, the award went to Anthony Hopkins when they saved this for last because they were going to give it to Chadwick Boseman posthumously.
Yes.
And then, wow. And then this year was nicer. Right, Brendan Fraser won for The Whale. Yeah. Terrible movie, horrible movie. But Brendan Fraser, we love him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't really take issue with him winning. It's not the performance I would have picked. I mean, it's not.
Well, that's what we're here to do, right?
Yeah, of course.
If we pick the winners,
yes.
So who do you pick?
If I had to pick, I'm going with Colin Farrell.
Whew. That's tough. That would be my second.
I'm assuming you're picking Paul Mescal.
Paul Mescal, yeah, he's I think it's Mescal, but Paul Mescal, he for After Sun, I think it's of these 5 performances, it's the best of the year, and I would say it is the best. Like this is one of the few categories where I actually do think that this is like of any movie of 2022, I would pick this as the best actor for Paul Mescal. Yeah.
No, I mean that's a fair choice. I mean it's certainly. I don't know if I were making a ranked ballad, I probably would put this at like 2 or 3 on my list. I guess
I didn't watch Living, the Bill Nighy, so I don't know how that is.
That's my number 2 pick. I mean, there was no chance at all that he was going to win, but I think that's a beautiful, tender performance from Bill Nighy.
Okay,
and quite
happy for Austin film. Butler getting nominated.
Sure. I think it's all solid. Like I don't know where I'd put like Austin Butler and Brendan Fraser, considering that those are my top 3 here, but I mean, I don't really take any issue with the performances themselves. I guess for me, like I'm really happy that Brendan Fraser won just because I think he really was moved by the win, and I think it was a great kind of triumphant moment for him. I don't think this character or this film is one that really needed one Oscar, let alone 2 this evening. But I also don't hate the movie as much as you do and other people do. So be that as it may.
Actor in a supporting role. Now, this is one of the biggest moments of the Oscars. I know that because the winner was Ke Huy Quan, who won for Everything Everywhere all at once. Now, this was highly predicted. I should have mentioned before. So far, for Critics' Choice, which is where the voting body that I vote in, we also gave Brendan Fraser collectively for The Whale for Best Actor. In terms of Best Supporting Actor, we also gave it to Ke Huy Quan. He was clearly the front runner. And I mean, for me, like just scrolling on social media, the vast majority of moments of the Oscars have all had to do with him, his speech, him embracing Harrison Ford and Brendan Fraser, and like how they like wove that into like his previous performances. It's a very, very like satisfying story that kind of came out of this year's Oscars, it looks like. But we're here to pick the winners. Now, look, he's already a winner no matter what we say. But who would you have picked here if you were picking?
I think they got it right this time. I would give it to Ke Huy Quan.
Same here. And look, for me, Brendan Gleeson is extremely close for Banshees of Inisherin. I mean, I struggled with this. Yeah,
I was close. If Ke Huy Quan wasn't up for the award, I probably would have given it to Barry Keoghan for Banshees of Inisherin.
Barry Keoghan for Banshees of Inisherin. Really interesting. I mean, like, I also like that performance, but yeah, I think this was a strong category this year. I thought Judd Hirsch was great in The Fabelmans. I thought Brian Tyree Henry was really great in Causeway. So,
me too. Yeah, I liked all these actors. I caught that one last week finally, and I thought he was terrific.
Very nice.
I mean, I knew he was going to be good because he's always good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that performance was easily the highlight of that film. So yeah, I don't really take any fault with the nominations. Yeah, my only thing is, I really would have liked if Paul Dano was nominated. I mean, I don't know if I would have put over Judd Hirsch, but like I think he may have been more deserving ultimately than Judd Hirsch.
I think he's great too. Sure, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think Everything Everywhere at Once doesn't really work without Ke Huy Quan in that performance. Like, I think that performance is such a delicate, evolving performance that, you know, it's also the type of performance that, like, I know when we reviewed the film nearly a year ago, we were just like, it's so amazing to see him again, and like, this performance should not be overlooked, not knowing at the time that, like, that would be the, you know, one of many performances in this film that would get Oscar love. But yeah, I mean, it was just one of those, it's such an underdog triumphant story on its own, but also just the performance is very well deserving. I mean, he's really the one that kind of keys the film in, sells you on the multiverse idea, and also just sells the emotional key points of the film in a very authentic and vulnerable and visceral way. So I absolutely think he should have won that award. And it was very...
Could not agree with you more.
Yeah, and I thought it was a very moving moment to see not only him with Harrison Ford, as you mentioned, but also just see him with his Oscar. Just clearly, you know, on cloud nine with this whole thing. So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Actress in a leading role. Now, the winner here, again, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which really swept this year's Oscars, which a lot of people predicted. It also swept other awards bodies, but Michelle Yeoh won for Best Actress. And I think she's only the second person of color to ever win this category, I think was the big thing for this. But now we also had Cate Blanchett for Tar. And that's who I picked for CCA. We also have Ana de Armas for Blonde, because they're, you know, that we live in a chaotic universe. Andrea Riseborough for To Leslie, which was kind of the sort of like grassroots actors campaign that kind of happened and kind of messed around with some of the rules and procedures of the Oscars. And then finally, Michelle Williams for The Fabelmans. Now, it's my understanding The Fabelmans got completely shut out in terms of wins. There were a bunch of movies that apparently did not win anything, even though they had like multiple nominations.
Yeah. And yeah, that was a big one. Banshees of Inisherin was a big one, and The Fabelmans was a big one.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of Best Actress, who I already said who I pick. I would pick Cate Blanchett for Tar. So that goes without saying. And it's close. I mean, I also really, really loved Michelle Yeoh's performance. It's really close second. But who would you have picked?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy Michelle Yeoh won. I don't take any fault with that. I think it's a great performance, and also similar to Ke Huy Quan, I thought, you know, it is so key to that movie working, and the delicate balancing act that made that movie work. But yeah, I mean, I think Cate Blanchett just really becomes Lydia Tarr to the point where people do not realize that that's not a real person. Not that they think that, you know, Cate Blanchett is, you know, like, this is not a documentary or anything, but like that she is, you know, really sells the mystique and the pageantry of this character, but also recognizes the hubris and the, you know, kind of holier than thou attitude that this character embodies. And yeah, it's a very great showcase for an actress who has, you know, been very well regarded by the Academy and elsewhere, obviously. But yeah, I think it's kind of undeniable that this performance was one of the best of last year.
Could not agree more. And Kate, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you want to hear my thoughts on Blonde or not?
Well, first, I will just say, for Critics' Choice, the winner for that was also Kate Blanchett for Tar. But I would say Critics' Choice had a better lineup here. They didn't have Andrea Riseborough, they didn't have Anna de Armas, but they did have Danielle Deadwyler for Till, which didn't get any nominations, Viola Davis for The Woman King, and also Margot Robbie for Babylon for some reason, but whatever. But either way, I think that Kate Blanchett very much was my pick, but Michelle Yeoh, obviously thrilled for her to win this award because she was also terrific. You liked Blonde? Was Blonde your favorite movie of 2022?
No, it wasn't my favorite film of 2022. I did think Ana de Armas is actually pretty great in Blonde.
That's right.
I mean, you thought she was bad in the film?
I think that it's hard to be good in a film that bad, as we saw with Brendan Fraser. I don't
know. I mean, honestly, I don't know where I really stand on the film itself, but I guess considering all of the, I don't know how to put this exactly, but like considering all
the
of
Blonde for last, right?
The discourse. Yeah, that was the last one I ended up watching. But considering all the discourse around the film, I was kind of surprised that it was tamer than I guess I expected. Like it wasn't as transgressive as I think people were making me believe. I mean, there's obviously some harrowing stuff in the film, but it's not as extreme as I think people were making it out to be.
It's probably because of that. Yeah, you were hyped up a little bit on that, and
I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I think the film itself is fine. Like, I don't really think it's really worth all of the uproar that's really gotten. But I don't think it's something I'm gonna come out and champion praise. I think it looks gorgeous. It certainly looks much better than most Netflix movies. And I think it's probably more deserving of cinematography nomination than pretty much anything that was nominated this year in a pretty weak category.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's quite as spiteful as people make it out to seem. I don't think Andrew Dominique was trying to get this movie made for 10 years just to, belittle the legacy of Marilyn Monroe. However, I do think he gets made ultimately a dumber version of Fire Walk with Me, and we already have Fire Walk with Me, so I don't really know what point this movie serves, but I don't know. I can see why you didn't like the film. It's certainly you're right. I didn't mind it all that much. I thought it was fine.
Back to if we picked the winners. So we have Best Supporting Actress next. Actress in a supporting role. Now, the winner was Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once, but the other nominees included Angela Bassett for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Hong Chow for The Whale, Carrie Condon for The Banshees of Inisherin, and Stephanie Hsu for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now, this one's a little bit trickier because I know for me, when I was doing this for Critics' Choice, I also struggled with this one. And then I think for Critics' Choice, we also had Jessie Buckley in the mix and Janelle Monáe for Glass Onion. I think I forget exactly who. I'm pretty sure I picked Stephanie Hsu for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And so that's who I would pick for this category as well, because I think Stephanie Hsu is really great, and I found her performance more remarkable than Jamie Lee Curtis. And you're probably listening to that and you're like, but wait, John, Jamie Lee Curtis is a massive fan of One Piece. One Piece being the anime/manga that you are obsessed with and find to be one of the greatest stories of our time. How could you not support Jamie Lee Curtis when the call comes? And the answer to that, of course, is that I make my own decisions. But Will Ashton, who do you pick as the winner? Because you're not a fan of One Piece, so you are not held to the same obligations as me.
My pick was a woman that was, I think, at one point the front runner for the prize, then kind of became the fourth or fifth most likely, or I guess rather least likely to win, which was Carrie Condon for The Banshees of Inisherin.
Was she? I don't remember when she was ever a front runner. I know Angela Bassett was talked about. She won for Critics' Choice, and I don't know who I really would have predicted. I think I was kind of Everything Everywhere All at Once momentum mode, but really, Carrie Condon. I mean, she's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the movie kind of hinges on that performance. I mean, she's the kind of moral center of the film. As great as all the other actors are in that film, I think she's, the one that really kind of keeps everything in focus, is core to the film having such a powerful and kind of haunting message. And yeah, I thought it was, a very moving, thoughtful performance, and my favorite of the bunch. I didn't love this category as much as others. I felt like, similar to you, Jamie Lee Curtis' performance, I was a little confused, not only that she was nominated, but that she won. I don't think she's bad necessarily in Everything Everywhere All at Once, but I didn't think that performance was anywhere near like one of the shining examples of that film. I certainly thought Stephanie Hsu was much better of the nominees in performances in that film, and she would probably be my second pick of the nominees. And I wasn't crazy about Angela Bassett's performance in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever either.
Forever. I liked her in that movie quite a lot, but certainly not at the highest level of like the year.
Not bad, but it's like I don't think she needs an Oscar for it. No, I mean, I think for her and Jamie Lee Curtis, it was a matter of like legacy Oscars, which again I think speaks more to the weakness of this category as far as it was between like two legacy actors kind of being head to head for who would win. But I did think Hong Chau was probably the best performance in The Whale. I mean, I think kind of similar to Carrie Condon and Banshees of Inisherin, and she's kind of the moral center of the film, and I thought probably the most devastating performance in that film.
You found her performance to be better than Sadie Sink's?
Oh, what? Absolutely. I think she's the one that feels the most real. I think she's the one that struggles the least with the material, as it were. But yeah, I don't know why Stephanie Hsu wasn't more of a contender for this award. I don't know if it's just because she's young.
She's younger, yeah.
And
I think you're spot on about the legacy thing. I heard that Jamie Lee Curtis thanked like fans of horror in her speech, and which is like very touching because for the longest time horror has been shut out, from the Oscars. A horror movie I don't think has ever won Best Picture maybe since Hitchcock. I could be wrong about that, but it's...
Well, that goes back to our Silence of the Lambs conversation, is whether or not that is a horror film.
Yeah, and a lot of people wouldn't say it is, yeah. So, it's a little tricky, huh? Okay, that's Best Supporting Actress. I picked Stephanie Hsu. Will Ashton picked Carrie Condon. Best Animated Feature Film. I think this is one of the strongest categories of the year. I think all the movies nominated here are at least quite good. We have Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which is one of my favorite movies of the year. It also won. We have Marcel the Shell Shoes On, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, and Turning Red. So we have a Pixar movie. We have an animated Netflix movie that was a lot of fun. Puss in Boots, like the surprisingly like solid Puss in Boots movie that I think a lot of people kind of overhyped a little bit, but that's fine. And Marcel the Shell Shoes On, which is like calling it an animated film. It's animated hybrid, I guess, but sure. I mean, I think that's a lovely film as well. But Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which I think is just an incredible film. Love seeing stop motion win, and that would be my pick as well. I would pick GDT Pinocchio any day, and I'm really happy for the win because it's I heard it's going to be kind of fueling up the funding for his next movie. So
yeah, let's do Frankenstein movie. I think he has coming up. Yeah, which is gonna be fun, I hope. I mean, I think it's pretty easily Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
A write-in for Lightyear, yeah.
I mean, I think it's no contest that Del Toro had my favorite animated film of last year. I spoke, enough about that film in our review and in our end of the year conversation. But yeah, I love that movie to pieces. I really do like Turning Red as well. Probably, a near second, but not my favorite, given that Pinocchio's in the category. I think, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On and Puss in Boots are both pretty good. I thought The Sea Beast was fine. I don't know. It didn't really stick with me too much, I'll admit.
I liked it.
It's fine. It's like solid.
I put it at the same level as the other two. Maybe Marcel the Shell a little bit higher, but yeah.
I guess you're higher on. I would have preferred if Wendell and Wild got nominated personally over Sea Beast.
I didn't love that one. I liked it, but I had trouble. I don't know. I had some issues with it, but I really liked the animation at least.
All right. I guess that's just this means we're flipped on Sea Beast and Wendell and Wild. Yeah.
But hey, both Netflix movies. Netflix had a hell of a year in terms of, in a lot of ways, but also animation. Because I mean, we're talking about a category where they had two nominated for Best Animated, and you would want to slip in another one that was Netflix. So there you go. All right, Best Cinematography. Now, the winner of this one was All Quiet on the Western Front. I think All Quiet won 4 awards this year. I think it was like the second highest amount of awards for a film this year. But we also have Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, got nominated for Best Cinematography. We also have Elvis, Empire of Light, and Tar. Probably the biggest name on this list is Roger Deakins for Empire of Light. That's the Sam Mendes film. I didn't see Empire of Light or Bardo. I believe you saw all of these movies, though. For me, I would have picked All Quiet on the Western Front. It was my favorite movies of the year. I saw some discourse coming out where people were just like, this movie? This movie's not even cool. And I was just like, okay. Like, I felt like the discourse on it was just like people just sort of like flatly, maybe lazily, it was just like, it's not as good as people say. And I'm like, well, okay. I think it's pretty great. I know you weren't the biggest fan of it either. So maybe you find that a little bit more, maybe a little bit more sympathetic. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I thought All Quiet on the Western Front was perfectly fine. Do you want to hear
better than Sea Beast or worse?
Do you want to hear a steaming hot take?
Sure.
All right, are you even prepared for this?
I don't know.
I think Blonde is better than All Quiet on the Western Front.
That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard come out of your mouth. And the funniest thing is that these are all Netflix movies. What is going on here? Bardo is Netflix.
At the very least,
Blonde is Netflix.
I definitely think at the very least, I definitely think the cinematography in Blonde is better than All Quiet.
Now, look, we have fun on this show. Cinemaholics, it's all about subjectivity. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and nobody should ever feel bad for their opinion. Unfortunately, Will Ashton, this is one of those exceptions where I think you're objectively wrong, and I don't want you to feel bad, but I do want you to analyze this and reconsider your choices.
I would say it's definitely the weakest of this category. I'm not quite sure why you're so taken with the cinematography in All Quiet. Like, it's not a bad looking film, but it is fairly murky and not exceptionally visually enticing.
Why is this war movie murky? Yeah. It's like trench warfare in the 19 teens, trying to like demonstrate the banality of bureaucracy of people who call the shots in war. Yeah,
banality is definitely the right word for it. But in any case, like I said before, I don't think this was a particularly strong year for the films nominated. I think there were a lot of beautifully looking films that should have gotten nominated. I think Fableman's not being nominated is kind of incredible.
The best thing about and it's the problem with that one is it's the greatness of the cinematography of Fablemans is nuanced.
Sure.
and I mean Babylon for a different reason, but those are two movies that I think are strangely missing here. But in terms of Fablemans, I mean, you're trying to make a child's student film look authentic, but also look impressively good. That is so hard to do. Yes. And it is amazing that movie didn't get any sort of
I mean, also the fact that Nope didn't get nominated for cinematography blows my mind as well.
It's insane. I think it's because it's the sci-fi thing, and it's sort of but it's weird because cinematography usually does lean into that. It's weird. Right. I didn't see Bardo, so I don't know about that one. Elvis has some fancy transitions, but it loses steam as a cinematography vehicle in the second half. Like, it really just kind of falls apart for me. Yeah. Eventually.
I think Tar is probably my pick of these five. I don't think Tar has like amazing cinematography, but in terms of servicing the story and the look of the film, I think that's certainly the highlight of these nominees. Bardo is probably my second favorite. I think it's very sharp, visually enticing film. I don't think it deserves an Oscar per se, but looks nice. Okay. Empire of Light is Deakins being Deakins. It's strong, it's solid, but I don't know what really. It's like looking nice, but like to what end? Like, it's servicing a fairly empty and shallow film, so it's it's pretty imagery for pretty imagery's sake, more or less. Elvis, I think, has some good cinematography, but can't get undermined by the kind of bombastic editing style of it that kind of makes it a little bit more garish than I think it needs to be. So I think that it's kind of hard to judge the cinematography of that film because I feel like we're kind of getting a work view of it in the film itself. But yeah, I mean, I still think Tar is my pick. I mean, it's the sharp, crisp looking film, and I like the way that it plays with your angle and expectations of the film, as far as it being, very narrow and exact at the beginning of the film, and then as things kind of get twisted and contorted, like things get a little more askew in ways that are subtle but very pronounced if you're pay attention. So I think it's solid camera work here. So I'd give it the Oscar of the nominees.
So Tar is your pick. My pick is All Quiet on the Western Front. Let's move on to Best Costume Design. Now, the winner of this category was Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Ruth Carter. Ruby Carter won her first costume Oscar, or her first Oscar in general, with Black Panther, and so I don't. A lot of people weren't expecting her to get one for the sequel. I'm not sure, who people thought were going to win. It was probably between Babylon, Everything Everywhere All at Once, but we also had Elvis and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. I haven't seen Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. I know that she made it there, but I don't know what happened after that. But yeah, my pick for this one would definitely be Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think the costume design helps tell the story of that film more than any of these, especially like I think Babylon, but that's a little minor hang up I have with Babylon. I don't love the costuming in that movie, but except for the silent film sequence of the movie, which I think is the best part. But otherwise, Will Ashton, what's your pick?
For me, it's no contest, though it might be a surprise to you.
Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
It's Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. And that whole movie is about dresses. It's so central to the
movie. Yeah, I mean, okay, sure.
And it's about her being kind of swept from this fairly mundane life into this extravagant France, experience. And
wait, does Mrs. Harris ever use her fanny pack in order to fend off multi-dimensional villains?
I would say Everything Everywhere at Once is probably my second pick after Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. But I mean, I agree with you in the sense that movie, the costuming is not only fairly inspired and inventive, given also the budget of that film, but I think it does, lend to the film and storytelling itself. And you could argue, costuming is essential to that because it is in a laundromat. But
it's instantly iconic, I think.
Sure.
It's the most iconic of these movies in its own right, yeah.
It's the one that probably has the most Halloween costume potential, I guess you could say.
Yeah, all you need is like the googly eye. Yeah.
But no, I still think Miss Harris Goes to Paris. There's so many gorgeous, lavish costumes in that film that also service the story, also invite us to see Mrs. Harris' perspective, her, kind of character arc, as it were, and also just you have to be kind of won over, you have to be enticed to be living in that experience, and I think the costuming does that in a way that is extravagant, but not overly flashy, and I think that is one of many strengths of a very lovely film that is Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
Let's go to a big one, Best Director. Now, the winner for this one were the Daniels. Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Again, it just swept. And amazing to see the Swiss Army Man directors just at this point. It's kind of amazing, their story and how they got to the place where they are right now as filmmakers. But yeah, so that was the winner. Now, the nominees also included The Banshees of Inisherin, Martin McDonagh, Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans, Todd Field for Tar, and Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness. I've seen all of these except for Triangle of Sadness. I only seen part of it. And one of the reasons I wasn't able to finish it was because I was watching it on a plane and I couldn't hear anything. And I'm deaf, and I'm on a plane and white noise, and they didn't have subtitles. And that made me mad. I want subtitles, please.
It would be very inconvenient if they started playing Noah Baumbach's White Noise while you're trying to watch the film. I agree.
Which shut out from the Oscars this year. What a surprise. I remember, too, when I saw that, and I was talking to a group of people about White Noise, and I was like, oh, yeah, not a great... Like, they were all into it. They were just like, man, this is going to do so well. I was like, I don't know. I thought it was kind of not great. And sure enough, it's just disappeared. Like, nobody, it's gone.
I'm excited to see it. I read the book. I am planning to check it out soon. I didn't prioritize it because I wanted to catch up on these Oscar movies, but hope to see it soon. I've heard mixed things.
Netflix had higher hopes for it than I think, Netflix sent a bunch of stuff to critics about it, but then they really pivoted to All Quiet on the Western Front. So anyway,
that's true.
Who is your pick for Best Director?
Best Director, I don't know if it's controversial to say at this point, but I think I'm going to have to agree with the Academy and say that Daniel should win. because I really think this film relies so heavily on the strength of their direction to capture the various multiverses, the tone, the way that this movie is able to kind of balance something that is so grandiose, so wide-scoping, so inventive, so bombastic, but also feel very intimate. Like, it doesn't overwhelm you in the sense of, like, creatively it is kind of intoxicating, but you still get the emotional heights of the story in a way that feel very authentic and involving and touching. And so, I mean, that's just another sign of the Daniels. I think they take these wild and out concepts, but they play with your emotions like a fiddle. And I think we're certainly watching two filmmakers who are going to be making some pretty incredible movies, I hope, moving forward. And I think this movie, it's because of their direction that this movie was able to succeed as well as it has. So I think it's pretty safe to say that they deserve the Oscar. Though I would have loved if somehow, in some way, Steven Spielberg had won his, what would it be, like his third or fourth Oscar for The Fabelmans?
Third, but yeah, not 100%. Yeah, I actually agree with you 100%. I would add something that you touched on earlier, which is that, yeah, they were able to do everything that they were able to do with that budget. And I think that, like, one of the best things about them winning this award too is showing that you don't need $200 to $300 million to make a movie look good. Like, you don't need it. And it's remarkable to see a movie like this coming out like when it did. And then it was like before these other movies, like, you know, Thor, Love and Thunder, a movie that just, you know, like, not to knock down that movie too much, but I mean, considering their budget and what they do with that movie, it's remarkable how much this gets thrown around, you know, in terms of money. But here they were able to make so much with what they had. And it's very inspiring. And it's a great category this year. I mean, I think Todd Field for Tar would have been, you know, certainly understandable. And I thought Spielberg would obviously, like, give it his all with The Fabelmans. And I really like what Martin McDonagh did for Banshees of Inisherin. I don't know about Triangle of Sadness. It looks fine. But, you know, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would have nominated Triangle of Sadness over Avatar: The Way of Water per se, but or even Top Gun or some of the other potential nominees. Certainly, I think Jordan Peele was way more deserving, but then I could say Nope deserved a lot of nominations that it didn't get. But in any case, or even Park Chan-wook for Decision to Leave as well. That was entirely snubbed from this category. But
also from Critics' Choice. Critics' Choice, we gave it to the Daniels, but yeah, there was no Sarah Polley. Like, we had Sarah Polley, we had SSJ Rajamouli.
Of course, yeah, absolutely, he should have gotten nominated. That was, I knew there was a big one I was overlooking. How is he not nominated? Yeah. Any case, I mean, the other thing too is I don't remember the exact statistic, but I know, like, there were like 200 set locations or something like that and everything I wrote once. They had, like, I think 22 days to film the movie, so they had like upwards of like 80 shots to do in some days or whatever. It just, that is such an insane production that you know, that they had to accomplish in such a short amount of time.
For context to people, so, you know, when I was talking to Zach Braff about his new indie movie, A Good Person, that's a movie that's just like entirely shot in New Jersey, shot over the course of 26 days.
Zach Braff shot 26. A movie in New Jersey.
What's next? but like, his hometown, for those of you who don't know. But that movie was shot in 26 days, which you could watch the trailer now. Like, it's a dramedy kind of indie low budget movie. And the idea of Everything Everywhere All at Once being made with 4 fewer days, it's just amazing. Like, unbelievable. It's a miracle.
I don't remember the exact, so don't quote me on it, but I just know that it was like an insane amount of locations for a staggeringly low number of days. Like, they pulled off basically a miracle what they did, and that's another reason why they deserve this Oscar. So
that's the bubblegum and you know, Scotch tape, you know, movie. Okay, documentary, best documentary for feature films. Now, the winner of this one, I think, is quite good, Navalny, which is certainly one of my favorite docs of the year. We also have All That Breathes, which I did not see, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, which I also do not see, and Fire of Love, which I did see and would be my pick. I really enjoyed that documentary. I think it's really, really great. And finally, A House Made of Splinters. Now, and again, didn't see that. I only saw 2 of these. But Will, I feel like you saw all of them, right? So you will have a better context for what the best was here. My guess is that you're going to pick All That Breathes. Am I right?
That would be my second pick. I would say Navalny was probably my least favorite of these nominees, and that's not to say anything about the film itself, but rather
no kidding.
how strongly I feel about the other ones, I think.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all good films. I did also really enjoy Fire of Love, but and Housemaid Splinters too. I think that one's getting overlooked. That's pretty. It's not easy film to watch, but it is pretty affecting and worth seeing if you can see it. But All the Beauty and the Bloodshed would probably be my pick for this category. Even though I didn't love this movie as much as Citizen4, the director's previous film, I thought that movie was able to pull off and accomplish primarily by focusing on Nan Goldin's perspective, and capturing this huge epidemic, but lensing it through this woman and her work and telling the story. I thought it was very well made and a very beautiful film, as the title would suggest. So All That Breathes is quite good as well, and I'm excited for you if you get a chance to ever check it out. I think you'll like it a lot, John. But it's All the Beauty and the Bloodshed for me.
All right. I'm abstaining from documentary short film because I have not seen any of them. But the winner of this one was The Elephant Whisperers. There was also Haul Out, How Do You Measure a Year, The Martha Mitchell Effect, and Stranger at the Gate. Which one did you pick, Will?
This one was far and away Haul Out for me. This movie is about walruses, has a pretty moving message about climate change. It's shot beautifully. It relies on kind of a minimalist approach, but it's all very engaging, and it's just super well made as well. And I thought this one well eclipsed all the other ones. So that's not to say anything about 4 of the nominees. I mean, I thought How Do You Measure a Year was solid, maybe a little up its own ass a little bit, but solid. Elephant Whispers, strong.
I would have thought you would have related with it more, but okay. Got him.
Yeah, there you go. Elephant Whispers.
That's not revenge for what you said about All Quiet on the Western Front.
Sure. I know. Elephant Whispers, your typical animal doc one, but very nice, very sweet. Martha Mitchell Effect, you're kind of most basic in terms of style and format, but fun, engaging, great personalities, and with that. The only one that I would say is bad of any of the shorts really is Stranger at the Gate, which is a fairly manipulative short film. And I don't know how much time I have to get into this, but they frame this movie as if it's like a true crime doc, leading you to presume things based on the ethnicity of some of the people involved. And then they don't do that. It's a good story, but the way they frame it is very kind of misleading and kind of offensive, ultimately, I feel, for what it's going for. So I think this is one of the weakest of the nominees in general, and the fact that it's nominated for an Oscar is kind of ridiculous. But the Oscars have certainly nominated undeserving films before, and this is no exception.
Let's get into Best Film Editing. Now, the winner here was Everything Everywhere All at Once. That would also be my pick. I think the editing kind of makes that movie. And some of the other movies here... Okay, so we have Banshees of Inisherin. I love it, Banshees of Inisherin. One of my favorite movies. The editing is not really something that sticks out to me for this movie. The pacing is quite great, and I think I think the editing is good, but, it's kind of similar with Tar. Like, it just doesn't stand out to me. I think Top Gun Maverick has great editing. I think that was a movie that I wouldn't have been surprised if it had won, if this had been its award. And then there's also Elvis, because... Of course. But yeah, my pick would be Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think the Academy got it right. But what do you pick, Mr. Will?
For me, it's also Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I agree with you that Top Gun is a close second. That is just a, slick, well-oiled machine of a film. And a lot of that just comes down to being just a really tightly wound, well-edited film. Very compact piece of entertainment. But again, I think it just comes down to the fact that there are so many ways, so many multiverses, if you will, in which Everything Everywhere at Once doesn't work. And the fact that it's able to come together as well as it does is not only because of the performances and the direction, the writing, but also just the fact that the editor is able to kind of tie all these confounding ideas and these conflicting
Rogers,
visions
by the way.
and all that.
Yeah.
And I believe he said this is only his second film during the Oscars, which is also
Amazing.
pretty amazing. But yes, another film that under the constraints it was given, it deserves it too. But like this is the fact that it's able to kind of engage all these various tones and emotions and story beats and characters into a well-rounded, compact package. I just think is a pretty daunting feat, and one that is accomplished bountifully, entertainingly, and very successfully. So I have to say that is my pick as well.
Let's go to Best International Feature Film. And for this one, I mean, look, we'll just say it. RRR got snubbed. It didn't show up here, which is nonsense.
Wasn't even eligible.
It was not eligible. So that's one of those things. We just have to...
Decision to Leave was also not nominated, and it was eligible.
It was not... I don't think it was their pick, right? South Korea's pick for... I forget what the pick was.
I thought it was their pick, but it wasn't nominated because it was almost. It was in a lot of people's, predictions for what was get nominated. Yeah, so it was like a big, notable snub.
Quite surprising. Now, the winner here was All Quiet on the Western Front, which I think is the right choice. I think it was the best of these. That said, I didn't watch all of these movies, so I can only say the ones I watched. We also have Argentina 1985, which I did not see. Close, which I did not see. EO, which I did, and I thought was quite nice. And The Quiet Girl, which I want to see. Because I like Irish films. But Will, you have seen all of these movies. Unfortunately, you do have the hang up of not being a true... you didn't actually watch All Quiet on the Western Front. You watched a bootleg that was clearly messed up.
Oh, boy.
But no, but seriously, what would your pick be for this one?
I mean, I will say that All Quiet on the Western Front is the only Best Picture nominee this year that I didn't see in theaters, if that's of any note. But... I would say my pick is, I don't know. I didn't love this category this year, unfortunately, just because I think there were so many international films that deserved to get recognized and only a few were.
I was surprised Bardo didn't show up here, but
yeah. I don't know if I would have nominated Bardo either, but that's neither here nor there. In any case, I would probably pick EO. I thought that movie was quite affecting, and I love the stylistic swings it takes. I love that little donkey, and I thought it was a very engaging, spellbinding, and bittersweet film.
I like the shot in that movie where like the camera zooms around him in the circus.
That was great. A lot of great shots in this movie. I loved all the stuff with the little robot, if you remember him. In particular, I thought that was fantastic. Close, I
disagree with Sylvester Stallone. Movies need robots, and so he was wrong to take that out of Rocky IV.
Yeah, I haven't seen his cut of Rocky IV yet, but I certainly was disappointed to hear that as well.
Should I watch The Quiet Girl? Should I go for it?
Quiet Girl is good, and Close is good. I will say for both films, I liked them. I found myself very moved by them in the theater, but they didn't really stick with me for whatever reason. Quiet Girl was the second to last film that I saw for the Oscar-nominated films. I don't know, like I saw it this Saturday. I found it very touching. I love that it plays with like a style of storytelling that like where the beats are going, but they're so understated and they move against tropes and expectations that when it does have that ending moment you expect, it is actually very affecting and haunting. But I don't know, it didn't leave like a lasting impact on me, I guess. And same I can say. When
you told me you were gonna watch Quiet Girl, I was like, oh, are you just talking to me? You're just telling me to Quiet Girl? I was like, okay.
Argentina 1985, solid, well told, kind of basic in storytelling. I feel like it kind of undermines the power of the story a bit ultimately. All Quiet on the Western Front, my least favorite of these, but it's fine. It's a fine film. But John likes it a lot, so you can trust him.
Makeup and hairstyling. Winner for this one was The Whale, because I already mentioned before about how we live in a chaotic universe. This is not my favorite category either, honestly. I mean, we have All Quiet on the Western Front. I don't think the makeup and hairstyling is what's impressive about that movie. The Batman, which It's the fat suit. Is that really all it comes down to? It's because the whale and the Batman have okay, and then Elvis, I guess, has the same kind of deal with Tom Hanks, and then Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, sure. This is tough for me because I don't think the makeup and hairstyling is all that impressive in any of these. I guess I would maybe kind of go for Black Panther because I liked some of the hairstyles. I don't know. I don't care about this one as much. What was your pick?
It's funny that you said this is the one that you'd be least inclined to nominate All Quiet on the Western Front for, when I feel like this is the one that's probably the most deserving of its nominations. That's not to say the makeup in that movie is like amazing, but this is the only one of theirs at least I can be like, okay, I at least understand why this got nominated in this category.
Well, I'll say real quick, for Critics' Choice, I picked Everything Everywhere All at Once, which did not get nominated here.
Yeah,
that's
surprising. Yeah. I'm not sure why that one got snubbed for this category. But in any case, I mean, the makeup in The Whale is impressive. Like, it's another kind of Suicide Squad situation where it's like, say what you will about the film, but the makeup is good. Like, it's, is it servicing a story that deserves that makeup? Probably not. But it's well done. I still think I would give it to the Batman overall. I think that it's the one where the makeup probably lends itself best to the story in a way that gets you involved with it and into that world. Certainly, I think the makeup for Colin Farrell in that movie is pretty incredible. We're
going to see more of it. There's going to be a Penguin show.
With the Penguin show, yeah. I mean, again, like similar to you, I don't think this category is one where I'm like, overwhelmingly positive on one of them. Yeah. It's kind of more like the Batman, I guess. But I mean, I guess that's the one I would pick. Though I can understand why The Whale won.
Let's do the two music categories, starting with original score. And now the winner for this one was All Quiet on the Western Front, but the nominees also include Babylon, Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Fabelmans. This one, look, you kind of converted me on this, and that's Babylon. I think I was a little bit softer on Babylon until you kind of was like, you know what, John, give it another chance. What do you got to lose? And I was like, all right, it's going to be like my one time listening to Will. Yeah, it's actually a really good. Listening back to it, it actually is really great. It's more memorable than the rest of these, I think. The only one that kind of comes close is Fabelmans. I remember that one pretty well too. But I mean, it's John Williams. Big surprise.
I mean, the score for All Quiet is fairly memorable, but it's just brong, 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 brong.
It's for me. I think the sound editing in that is more interesting than the actual score, because it's more haunting. It's more about how it gets woven in, less so the tune. So that's why, like, for All Quiet, I'm a little bit like, nah, this isn't quite the category that I think for it. But okay, is your pick Babylon? I mean,
it's pretty safe, but I do really enjoy the score for The Fabelmans. If it wasn't John Williams, I know this may or may not be his last film, but I mean, he has been properly recognized throughout the years. But yeah, I mean, I think just Babylon, of all the scores in this, like you said, I think that's the one that just sticks with me the most. The one I've gone back and listened to the most, certainly, of any of these. I can't say the score, as much as I like the Banshees of Inisherin, I can't say the score has really stuck with me as much. It is like, right. I remember it being nice, but I don't really remember much from it. And I can say the same for the score for Everything Everywhere at Once. I feel like the score for All Quiet is not that good, and I'm kind of baffled as to why it won. But yeah, I think Babylon is, I don't love this category this year outside of the two nominations I mentioned, but I think Babylon is well-deserving and probably should have won.
Let's move on to Best Original Song. Now, this is a category where, for me, the toughest thing is that we don't have Ciao Papa from Pinocchio, which I know something you were a little bit less like, why do you like that song so much, John?
I didn't re-listen to it. I'm softer on it. I don't think the songs in Pinocchio are the thing I love the most about that film.
There's something that, for me, certainly enhanced the movie. But either way, we have Naatu Naatu from RRR as the winner, their only nomination, and therefore their only win. But I'm happy the movie got something. And for this, that's great, because I think Naatu Naatu certainly represents really one of the best things about that movie and its energy. We had a few other nominees. The only one of these that I genuinely really liked a lot and would have been fine winning would be Lift Me Up the Rihanna song from Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I think that's actually a really great song. The rest of these, they're whatever. I listened to them. Applause for Tell It Like a Woman, which I forgot came out. Hold My Hand from Top Gun Maverick, which it's fine, I guess. This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, I can't even remember these songs very well. Like, thinking back on them, like Hold My Hand a little bit. I mean, it's Lady Gaga, so, but it's fine. It's all good. Not to.
I mean, yeah, this is 100% not to's award, and I'm so glad it won. Yeah, because it very easily could have gone to Lady Gaga or Rihanna, and I don't know. I thought the Rihanna song was fine. I guess I'm colder on it than you comparatively, but it's not a bad song. I don't think it needs an Oscar. And likewise, I mean, was it Hold My Hand? Is that the Lady Gaga song?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, Hold My Hand. Yeah. I will say, great performance of it during the telecast. I mean, I would recommend if I'm sure it's on YouTube. I would watch it for that, and it did.
Maybe someday.
It did win me over a little bit more. I can say that I was a little softer on that having watched the Oscars this year. This Is a Life again. Like I love David Byrne. I can't say the song did much for me, and I thought the performance of it during the Oscars wasn't very good.
I mean, I love Mitski, so.
And then, yeah, Mitski's great too. And Applause, just the annual Diane Warren has a lot of friends at the Academy.
Yes.
They just nominate any piece of garbage that she puts out. Not to say that everything she's ever done is garbage, but the stuff she's done the last few years does not deserve Oscar nominations. And this certainly did not. And the fact that I had to sit and watch this movie, which is probably the worst of the nominated films this year.
Wow.
Is also souring me on this nomination. I would have certainly preferred Ciao Papa over Applause, which is not a good song.
All right. Well, let's go to Best Production Design. The winner for this one was All Quiet on the Western Front. Some people had, guesses of it could go to Avatar: The Way of Water. It had a strong shot. People were also wondering if Babylon, might sneak this in, but nope. And also there's Elvis and The Fabelmans. So, for me, no contest. I think it's All Quiet on the Western Front. It's my favorite production design. I mean, again, one of my favorite movies. And I think the production design of All Quiet on the Western Front is part of what makes the movie as effective as it is for me. And that's the way they were able to capture the location, going from the trench warfare, but also to the French countryside, and how all of that is displayed. Also, I just thought the movie really well captured the scenes with Daniel Bruhl, where we get into more bureaucratic side of things, and the contrast between those sets, but how they still feel of a type, I think is really impressive. And all the little moments here are what make the design for me. But what's your pick? Well, I'm going to guess it's The Fabelmans.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a pretty strong category this year. I mean, I thought, four very, deserving nominations, and then one that I understand, I guess, sorta. I think Fabelmans, I agree with you, as you predicted. I think that's probably my pick, mainly because not only do I think the production design of that film is great, but it's able to be both very lived in and authentic and thoughtfully made, but also feel very cinematic and enriched and of its time. And that's a very tricky balancing act that I think the production team did a wonderful job with. I really did like the production design for Babylon. I think that would be my number 2 pick of the nominees. I thought, some splendid sets, some very fun, period designs. Likewise, Elvis, fun, flashy sets galore, fun production design to be sure. And I did really like the thoughtfulness and invention that was in the production design for Avatar: The Way of Water. But Fabelmans is my pick. All
right. Let's go to animated short film. I haven't seen any of these, and we kind of have to fly through them if we can. But the winner here was The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. No idea what that's about. But there was also The Flying Sailor, Ice Merchant, My Year of Dicks, which I'm guessing is your pick, and An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake, and I think I Believe It, which is, I'm assuming, your number 2. But no, what was your first?
So I'm surprised you didn't know what The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse is, because that's an Apple production.
Okay.
So,
why would
just saying.
What?
I don't know. Just
okay.
Some some connections to Apple.
Yeah, there's a lot of Apple stuff I don't watch.
Oh well, I hope no one from your company is listening. Uh, Ice Merchants is my pick. I think that movie is so beautifully animated and so wonderfully told. It's very
Ice merch,
minimalist.
like they sell ice.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot goes into it. But yeah, I mean, I think that was actually available on YouTube if you want to check it out.
Oh wow.
But yeah, I mean, it only relies on like 3 or 4 colors. It's very minimalist in its design, but gorgeously animated. You'd be delighted to know it is influenced a lot by Japanese artists and animations, and yeah, it just looks great. All dialogue free, but very affecting, very moving. My Ear Dicks, also very good, very funny, very inventive in its animation as well. I thought this was just a strong year for this category as well. I mean, Ostrich told me the world is fake, and I think I believe it. Definitely up my wheelhouse. I liked it a lot. I feel like if I predicted what would be my favorite of these going into it, that would absolutely been my number one pick. But that's not to say anything of the short itself. I liked it a lot. Yeah, I mean, all solid stuff.
Fantastic. All right. Well, then we can then just knock out best short film, but in live action. We have An Irish Goodbye, which won. We have Ivalu, which was nominated, Les Pupilles, Night Ride, and The Red Suitcase. The only of these I've heard of is Ivalu. I've given Irish Goodbyes, but that's about it.
Sure. I don't know how you've heard of Ivalu. I thought you would have heard Les Pupilles.
I see Les Pupilles. I see ads for Ivalu all the time on various social media sites. Yeah.
Interesting. Yep. Yeah.
Instagram mainly.
Les Pupilles is on Disney Plus right now. I thought that's maybe where you would have heard.
That's the one with Alfonso Cuarón?
He's a producer on it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be my second pick. My number one pick, I had never really loved a lot of the live action ones. I feel like last year actually had a stronger than usual category, but typically in this category, whatever the weakest one is tends to win. And I actually think this year they kind of bucked that trend a little bit. Because Irish Goodbye it's not my favorite, certainly, but it's still charming and sweet. I can see why they picked it, certainly. I thought I was going to go to Les Pupilles because of the Disney connection, but I think quite easily the best one is The Red Suitcase. Just that, it's told in real time, it's tense, it's visceral, it has a very timely message to it, it's, very affecting. I thought that one was quite easily the best of the bunch.
Fantastic. All right. Let's then move on to Best Sound. For Best Sound, the winner was Top Gun Maverick. We also had All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, and Elvis. Again, I have to give it to All Quiet on the Western Front, as I mentioned before. I just think the way the sound editing works in that movie and the mixing as well is one of my favorite things about it. But I also like, I think the sound is quite good in Top Gun Maverick. I also think that Elvis, of its foibles, I think the music is kind of what comes through for me. The way the music kind of interacts with the story and how all that plays and some of the broadcast little quirks that they do. And it's fine. But yeah, what's your pick?
Well, for one, I got to say, I'm kind of surprised that Tar wasn't nominated for sound, but I don't know what that's about. As much as I like the sound design for the Batman, which I think is actually really well done and very affecting, very engaging, I got to give it to Top Gun Maverick, which, seeing that in Dolby, just being caught up in the pageantry of it, just the huge, expansive, sound eclipsing audio and just getting involved with it is quite incredible. That's another film. How did that not get nominated for Best Cinematography? That also blows my mind. How that movie didn't get a nomination in that category. Yeah, whatever. I got to give it to Top Gun Maverick. I think they picked the right one here.
Fantastic. Let's move on to Best Visual Effects. Speaking of, Avatar: The Way of Water won for Best Visual Effects, but Top Gun Maverick was also nominated along with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, The Batman, and All Quiet on the Western Front. Kind of similar batch of nominees here, but a different winner. For me, I would give this one to Avatar: The Way of Water. I think I'm in the minority when it comes to what I like about the motion smoothing that they do and the frame rate. I actually think it's really effective, and for me, it was a very memorable experience. So I'm with the Academy on this one. What about you, though? Are you telling the Academy the way of changing their minds?
As much as I like the special effects in Top Gun Maverick, which I think are fairly seamless throughout the film, and like it's very good about getting you in there and not really making you notice a lot of the green screen and the effects that go into it. I have to say that my pick is probably Avatar. It's pretty easy. Like they create whole worlds in that movie. You're just kind of in another world quite literally throughout that film, and the painstaking efforts that went into making that film through CG, wizardry, and wondery is astounding as it was in 2009 as it is now, if not more so. So got to give it to Abada.
Avatar wins best visual effects.
This is Abada.
Now let's go on to the writing categories, and then once we finish those, we're be on our way to best picture. So we're almost there. So we'll start with adapted screenplay. Now the winner for this one was Women Talking, Sarah Polley's screenplay.
Women Be Talking.
Not a movie I really like that much, but I think it is a decent screenplay. I just don't love the way the movie comes together ultimately. So I'm okay with it winning. All Quiet on the Western Front was also nominated. Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery, Living, and Top Gun Maverick. I'm kind of confused about Top Gun Maverick and Glass Onion a little bit, but and I didn't see Living. All Quiet on the Western Front, I love this movie, but look, it's not a great adapted screenplay. Like it really is a very loose adaptation, which is what I like about it. So by default, I kind of go with the Academy on this. I think that Women Talking of these, I think is the most proficient in terms of being an adaptation. I don't think it's fully successful, but at the same time, it's just weird for me to say that like Glass Onion is the better adapted screenplay when like I think it's a better script, but not in that context, if that makes sense. And maybe I'm evaluating it wrong, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a lot of my issues with All Quiet on the Western Front stem from its screenplay. The fact that I find it to be a fairly shallow adaptation of the book and moving away from what I find to be affecting about that source material. Women Talking, I don't think that's an amazing script. I think it's certainly a much better adaptation, though I don't think it deserves an Oscar. However, I will say I was very happy to see Sarah Polley get an Oscar, just based on her career and her as a person. I just think it was nice for that. I think I'm more understanding of the Top Gun Maverick nomination than you are. I think that's just a really tight, like similar to the editing, just like very well made, very well oiled as far as that is concerned. I don't think it needs an Oscar, but I can see why it got nominated. For me, of these adapted nominees, which are pretty, not great this year, I have to say Living is my pick, especially, taking the original source material from the Kurosawa film, contextualizing it to a different time and different place. Well, actually, I don't think it's a different time, but certainly a different place, different language, but making it feel as enriched in that culture in that place, and having a lot of the same impact as Akira did many years prior is, I think it's a great screenplay, very witty, very smart, very lived in, very honest, and it's, of the nominees, it's the one I'm most inclined to give this prize to.
All right. And then original screenplay. For this one, the winner was Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think that was the right call for a lot of the reasons we've already got into. There's also The Banshees of Inisherin, which I also think is a great original screenplay. The Fablemans, which I think is great. Tar, which I think is great. And then Triangle of Sadness, which I'm sure is a screenplay. Now, for these movies, though, I am curious, Will, are you going to pick Everything Everywhere All at Once, or are you going to go Fablemans? I don't know. I'm kind of curious, actually. Or are you going to go something else? Are you going to surprise everybody?
I think this category is certainly stronger than the adapted screenplay category this year. Triangle of Sadness certainly being the weakest, but not a terrible screenplay, just not one I think that needs an Oscar nomination. For me, it's quite easily deserving of Tar. I think that's my pick for this year. I think mainly it just comes down to, like I said before, like the fact that Todd Field was able to kind of take this whole operation that he wasn't really adept to knowing the intricacies of the orchestra, make it feel very authentic, very lived in, very enriched in that time. But to the point where making this character feel as lived in it, to the point where people actually thought that she existed, and giving Cate Blanchett the grandstanding to make a character like this that is so affecting and such a great rewarding character study. I think for me, it's quite easily a triumph of a screenplay, and that's not to undermine what I think is really great screenplays from Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner for The Fabelmans, as well as Martin McDonagh for Banshees, and then the Daniels for Everything Everywhere at Once. But yeah, I think quite easily this has to go to Tar.
All right. I'm not super surprised, but I'm pleasantly surprised. So there we go. Let's finish this out then with Best Picture, the big award of the night. I think a lot of people know by now who won. The winner, of course, being Everything Everywhere All at Once, won Best Picture this year. One of the biggest, like, I think, sort of like, oh, people are really happy about this win on our side of the industry since probably Parasite, I guess. I mean, people liked Coda, I guess, but I don't think people were like, wow, Coda. And I think kind of similar with Nomadland. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once felt like a more exciting win. You know, and I know for me, I mean, this is the one that I picked for both awards, for this and Critics' Choice, mainly because RRR wasn't nominated. Or actually, I should say, was RRR for Best Picture? Oh, it is. So I did. Sorry, I lied. I picked RRR for Best Picture, which I would have for the Oscars if it was nominated. Sorry, but for this one, I do pick Everything Everywhere All at Once. We did also have All Quiet on the Western Front, which was up there for me. Avatar: The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, The Fabelmans, Tar. Tar would have been probably my second pick. Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. Only of these I didn't see was Triangle of Sadness, as the listeners have heard ad nauseum by now. But yeah, what is your pick, Will? Are you going to surprise everybody again and say Tar?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like with this one, I just picked my favorite of the bunch, which happens to be my favorite film of the year, which is The Fabelmans, which I think is such a great film. I think it's far richer and floridier than people have often give it credit. It's more than just a typical coming of age story. I think Spielberg put a lot of heart and a lot of thought and a lot of creative energy into that film, and made what I thought was a fairly affecting and very cinematic film, but also one that feels very enriched, and one that I think is going to be very rewatchable as time goes on. But yeah, I mean, I'm certainly happy with Everything Everywhere All at Once winning. I think it's a deserving, follow-up. I'm very happy for the Daniels and all the Oscars they have won this past Sunday, and the film they made winning as much as it did. And it's a great triumph, not only for independent cinema, but for these two up-and-coming filmmakers who are only continuing to prove themselves. And so I'm excited to see what this opportunity gives them in the years to follow. I have no idea what their, follow-up will be to this film, given the pedigree that it received. And I don't even know if they know, but I'm very excited to see what is in store. And so it was very nice to see them get so highly recognized on Oscar Sunday.
I don't agree with you that The Fabelmans is I don't agree with your opinion about The Fabelmans completely, but I think your opinion is pretty cool. It was like cool
Thanks.
opinion. It's like one of those ones that I would be like on the playground and I pretend to be the one who picked The Fabelmans so that I could look cooler while the kids are smoking cigarettes.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I like The Fabelmans a lot. I think Fabelmans is certainly one that's grown on me. And I liked it when I saw it. It's just that I kind of came out of it feeling a little bit less enthused than I wanted to. And but I think it's one of those movies I'll probably rewatch a few times, be like, yeah, that's a real solid picture right there. But at the same time, I think Everything Everywhere All at Once, I mean, that's the one that resembles a lot of what the year means to me overall. It's a movie that, as we've already mentioned, it's larger than life. It's a miracle movie that when I saw it, I had such an amazing experience with it that was only overshadowed by RRR not so long after. I think it's amazing, too, that the winner of Best Picture this year, it's a South by Southwest movie. It's a movie that was financially successful without being IP driven. You know what I mean? It was a movie that just the word of mouth caught on. It didn't have to go through all of the predictor, robotic category checklist things of like, well, it was at TIFF or was it Telluride at the same time it was at Venice. And statistically, if you look, and I'm like adjusting my glasses, I'm happy that Best Picture is becoming more unpredictable. It's been on that trajectory for a while, and I really appreciate it. I think that movies like Parasite have upset it. That Coda obviously came out of nowhere for people last year. I mean, a Sundance movie that was like streaming only for a while. Yeah, it was just people were like, how did that movie just sneak up on people? Even though some people were like, oh, Coda wasn't my favorite movie. Whatever. I think it's cool that it can be a little different every year. Totally different in terms of what the movie is and how the movie arrives. I think that's kind of cool. But
yeah, I mean, I also just think this is a great example of like genuine groundswell support for this film. Like you said, like this came out, nearly a year ago, and people are still talking about it, still championing the film. And it's also, like you said, it is, if the Best Picture and the Oscar winners are meant to represent kind of like the year in film and what's to come, I feel like this movie is a great indication of like where cinema is going to be going, moving forward, especially with more millennial and, Zoomer filmmakers making films and, being more diverse, being more accepting and audacious and stylistic in their choices. I mean, it does, for better or for worse, certainly considering there are a fair number of people who do not like this movie at all. But, it does feel like a film that like it is going to be influencing films moving forward. And it does feel like it does represent the year in cinema, as you were suggesting. Yeah. So in that respect, I think it does make it, in addition to it being a fairly great film, deserving of this prize. So certainly one I am happy with.
A movie that or a category that Critics' Choice does that I wish the Oscars could do someday. They do the best movie made for television at Critics' Choice. It's part of the TV stuff. But that idea of like doing like the best streaming movie or something like that, it doesn't necessarily have to, be totally separate from Best Picture and all those categories. But I don't know. There were some things in that list, like I think Weird and Al Yankovic story is what won, and we never even got to talk about that movie because you didn't see it still, right? You still haven't seen it. Wow,
I haven't seen it.
One of these days, I guess.
I get where you're coming from. I get where your headspace is. I kind of worry it's another situation where I feel like only in recent years has the Academy been able to move from like doing things like Best Animated Feature, Best International Feature, where they're just kind of like, well, this is your category, and then we don't have to like worry about nominating this for other things, like the real prizes, quote unquote. Like I feel like that was kind of the genesis for Best Animated Feature, because like things like Beauty and the Beast and Shrek were coming along, and they're like, we can't have these soiling the waters of our Best Picture nominees, until Toy Story 3 came along. But
I was going to say, it's been a long time since.
Yeah, I think, Best Beauty and the Beast was also nominated for Best Picture, of course. But, I worry with like that kind of thing. Yeah, up as well. So actually up before Toy Story 3.
Toy Story 3, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I worry about like if we do a category exclusive to streaming, that the Academy's going to kind of be like, that's your category.
There's so many movies that end up not qualifying, and it's like it's such a weird gray area that I wish that they could circumvent in some way. But I know it's not going to happen. I just have a dream. That's all.
Sure, I get it. But it is funny though, going back to Everything Everywhere All at Once, that you mentioned that was South by Southwest film, while the South by Southwest Festival is happening right now during the ceremony.
True. Yeah. I haven't been keeping up with South by Southwest this year. The only movie I'm even aware of that was playing was Dungeons and Dragons. I know some people already saw that. I'm seeing that tomorrow. Yeah.
People were raving about Bottoms, which is the follow-up to Shiva Baby.
I don't know what that is, but I like the name.
It sounds it's getting the same kind of buzz that Booksmart got when that premiered
that
at South by
sounds
Southwest.
like it's about people that I relate with. Yeah.
Sure. So I don't know. It just seemed on your radar. It's certainly on my radar because of how much I loved Shiva Baby. So certainly, I don't know. I don't think that's not to say that movie's going to get a Best Picture nomination in the future, though. Who the hell knows? I didn't think Everything Everywhere All at Once was going to get.
Just say that? You don't know.
Yeah. I didn't think Everything Everywhere All at Once was going to get a Best Picture nomination, let alone a win. So maybe the future is looking different than I think.
You know what's changed, Will Ashton?
Me? My attitude?
No. Everything. Everywhere. All at once.
There you go. All right. I think that's good enough.
That's our Oscars episode. If we picked the winners, if you want to pick some winners for yourself, you can let us know. Hit us up. You have our email in the show notes. You can always come hang out with us on our Discord server and let us know what you think of the Oscars this year after the fact. And hopefully next year we'll be able to do this before the ceremony.
Yeah, no, I think it was fun to do it this way. I think this was the first time recording this that I had seen all the nominees, so I was actually able to weigh in on each one, without any like, well, I have to abstain from this because I didn't see these two films or whatever. Like I saw.
Yeah, you didn't have to do what I did.
Yeah. You picking around and all that. You didn't even abstain from any category though, which is kind of shocking considering how
I
little
did.
you've seen.
I didn't say anything for short film.
Oh, that's
or
true.
for-
That's true. Yeah.
Jeez
Yeah.
Louise. Yeah. We're like 20 minutes away from it happening and you're already lying.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. It would have been funny though if you did pick for the short. So like I didn't see him, but Lamp
What kind of
I don't know.
merchant sells ice?
Yeah.
No thanks. All right. Well, we'll see you all in the next episode of Cinemaholics. Thanks so much for listening. From the Internet California, I'm John Negroni.
And for the Internet Pennsylvania, I'm Will Ashton.
See you next time.